The precipice of war. Alliances shatter and vengeance brews in Port Charles. In the storied, often stormy world of Port Charles, peace is a fleeting commodity, a fragile truce perpetually threatened by the undercurrents of ambition, betrayal, and long-buried secrets. Now, the city stands on the precipice of a new, more insidious war. The upcoming wedding of Willow Tate and Drew Quartermaine, an event that should symbolize hope and a new beginning, has instead become the flashpoint for a conflict poised to consume the city's most powerful families. This is no simple tale of love and marriage. It is a saga of corroded family ties, the terrifying danger of unchecked obsession, and the desperate, high-stakes power plays that threaten to burn everything to the ground. As the players take their positions on this treacherous chessboard, it becomes clear that this is a battle where the lines between hero and villain have blurred into a terrifying shade of gray, and the fight for control could cost everyone more than they could ever imagine. Part 1. The Architect of Chaos, Drew's Descent. On the surface, Drew Quartermaine is a man on the verge of total victory. With Willow Tate's surprising decision to proceed with their wedding, he believes he has finally secured his position, both personally and publicly. The union is meant to be a triumph, a symbolic victory over scandal and chaos, a public declaration of stability. But this carefully constructed facade is built on a foundation of strategy, not love. For Drew, this marriage is the ultimate power play, a move designed to solidify his standing and present an unassailable front to the world. However, just as he basks in the glow of his apparent success, an unexpected piece of information lands in his hands like a grenade disguised as a gift. This new intel, a bombshell revelation that exposes the vulnerabilities and machinations of his adversaries, does not chasten him. Instead, it ignites a darker, more aggressive ambition. The man who once fell from grace has learned a lesson, but it is not one of humility or caution. The lesson Drew has taken from his past is that to survive, one must be not just strategic, but utterly ruthless. He realizes with chilling clarity that everything he has built is still hanging by a thread, and he shifts his playbook from defense to a scorched earth offense. Drew's primary target is Michael Corinthos. He no longer sees Michael as family. He sees him as the next obstacle that must be discredited, dismantled, and pushed into the same abyss Drew himself once occupied. The looming confrontation is becoming the most personal and dangerous yet, a war fought not just in boardrooms, but in the court of public opinion. Drew begins to lay the psychological groundwork, subtly rewriting history in his favor. He starts a meticulous public relations campaign, contacting media figures and floating quiet, insidious rumors. His narrative is masterful in its cruelty. He is the steadfast hero who has stood by the fragile Willow through her collapse and protected her. Michael, in this twisted telling, is the one who abandoned his family in the name of ego and control. He even begins to suggest that the roots of Willow's deep-seated trauma may lie in Michael's own cruelty, a devastating and calculated blow aimed at the heart of their relationship. This psychological warfare is paired with a concrete assault on Michael's power. Drew accelerates his financial maneuvers to outmaneuver Michael's hold over Yelku, calling in old favors, reactivating dormant partnerships, and aligning with the formidable Ezra Boyle to further shift the corporate board in his favor. When he learns of Michael's potential intent to reobtain full custody of his children, Wiley and Amelia, Drew sees it not as a father's concern but as a direct provocation. This makes the war irrevocably personal. He is now preparing to strike on every front, legally, financially, and emotionally, determined to neutralize the threat Michael represents once and for all. What Drew doesn't realize, however, is that the more he plots in the shadows, the more he draws the attention of others who are beginning to sense that his campaign of recovery is a facade wrapped around something far more sinister. Part 2. The Unraveling of Heroes. As Drew descends into his quest for dominance, the very men who once stood as pillars of integrity in Port Charles begin to unravel under the pressure. The conflict is not only destroying alliances, but also corroding the souls of those involved, transforming heroes into mirror images of the darkness they claim to be fighting. Michael Corinthos is at the epicenter of this dark transformation. blinded by rage and grief. Every decision he makes seems aimed at inflicting pain. On Willow, on Nina, and on anyone who dares to challenge him. From the perspective of his mother, Carly, who has lived through decades of such conflicts, the change in her son is terrifying. He is becoming dangerously unrecognizable. The dependable son, the ethical business leader, and the voice of reason is changing not just emotionally but philosophically. Carly sees it already in his eyes and hears it in his voice. When he speaks of Willow, there's no softness left, only cold strategy. He discusses Sasha Gilmore as if she were an expendable asset. He lashes out, isolates himself, and turns cold when faced with compassion. What haunts Carly most is the possibility that Michael, in his desperation to assert dominance over Drew, might be adopting his own father's worst traits: the ruthlessness, the bitterness, the cunning, without the complex code of honor that sometimes tempered Sonny's actions. Something inside him has cracked, and Carly recognizes the signs because she's lived them. This isn't just a worried mother watching from afar. This is Carly seeing her son spiraling into an obsession to regain control, threatening to crash his entire trajectory into the very legacy she's fought to build. Simultaneously, another of Port Charles's moral compasses is losing his way. Trina Robinson no longer recognizes Curtis Ashford. The man who once stood as her guide, calm, principled, a grounding presence, has become a shadow version of himself. His obsession with bringing Drew down has consumed him entirely. Ever since Willow agreed to marry Drew, something in Curtis shifted. His posture changed, his tone hardened, and his eyes darkened. He is driven not by reason, but by a venomous need for retribution that terrifies Trina. He speaks of justice, but his words feel like vengeance. What began as suspicion for Trina has morphed into a full-blown investigation, and what she finds is world-tilting. In a moment of catastrophic discovery, Trina uncovers unencrypted files left carelessly on a shared device. These documents detail a hidden medical scandal, revealing Drew's alleged connections to a failed clinical trial and timelines that hint at a theory Curtis hadn't dared say aloud: that Drew had knowingly participated in a cover-up that nearly cost Curtis's life and unequivocally ruined his marriage in the process. The moment she sees these files, Trina's world tilts on its axis. The man she once saw as a potential stepfather is now a monster in her eyes, and the man who raised her is becoming one in his pursuit of him. This was about more than anger. It was about an obsession that had built an entire narrative in Curtis's mind, one that connected Drew to every failure, every wound, every betrayal. Now, he was determined to expose him at any cost, and Trina finds herself trapped between her loyalty to the man she loves and the terrifying truth of what he has become. Part 3. The Matriarch's Gambit, an Unholy Alliance. As the men of Port Charles descend into their personal wars, the city's most powerful women are stepping out of the shadows to wage their own. An unlikely and potentially explosive alliance is forming between Nina Reeves and Tracy Quartermaine. These two women, who have stood on opposite sides of nearly every battle, are now drawing up plans together, metaphorically locking arms in a mission driven by a potent cocktail of vengeance and protection. Their shared enemy, Drew, has become a threat too significant for either of them to ignore. For Nina, the motivation is primal and deeply personal. The announcement of Willow and Drew's upcoming wedding is not just another headline. In Port Charles, it's a declaration of her defeat. She is rapidly losing any influence she once had over her daughter. But more than that, she is terrified. The very thought of Willow tying herself to a man like Drew, manipulative, calculating, and capable of disguising coercion as love, sends shivers down her spine. Nina knows Drew all too well. His clean-cut appearance hides a ruthless mind. She fears that once Willow says, "I do," she'll be lost forever in a life shaped by emotional control, lies, and quiet devastation. And so, her voice, once silenced, her presence once minimized, is now being weaponized. She uses her fragile emotional tether to Willow to subtly inject doubt, planting reminders of Drew's past, his secrets, and his manipulations. Tracy, on the other hand, is driven by legacy and righteous indignation. Fierce, unrelenting, and equally infuriated by Drew's actions, she has watched him worm his way into the Quartermaine name, threatening the stability and heritage of a family she has spent her life defending. His backroom deals, especially the one involving Ezra, have tainted the Quartermaine name, and Tracy has had enough. She doesn't trust Nina, never has, but in this moment, she sees something undeniable. Nina has motive, Nina has access, and most importantly, Nina has rage. Tracy does what she does best. She leverages power. She activates legal connections, reaches out to court officials, and leans on old debts and long-standing influence within Port Charles's elite. She knows which strings to pull and, more importantly, how hard to pull them. This isn't friendship. It's a cold, calculated strategy. Caught between these two formidable forces is Carly Spencer, who is waging a lonely war on two fronts. She feels the pressure mounting with every passing day, as if the weight of the entire Corinthos and Quartermaine legacies now rests squarely on her shoulders. She is fighting to pull her son, Michael, back from the brink of his own darkness, while simultaneously fending off the external threat Drew represents. For years, she has fought through betrayals, scandals, courtroom chaos, and heartbreaks to build a life where her children could thrive, but now that vision is slipping away. She knows what it looks like when someone loses faith, in love, in family, in their own moral compass, and what she sees in Michael is a slow, seemingly inevitable transformation into something she never wanted for him. She's tried gentle talks, reminders of the boy he used to be, but those efforts bounce off Michael like rain on stone. So now, Carly is pivoting. She's turning to the one skill she perfected through years of survival: strategic control. It's no longer about open love. It's about silent influence. Behind the scenes, Carly is in battle mode. She's using her connections to slowly box Michael in, setting up legal backchannels through Diane, leveraging Sonny's pull to curb Drew's ambitions, and even discreetly working with Tracy to dismantle the false foundation Drew has built. She is becoming the puppet master, not because she wants power, but because she knows that without her intervention, Michael could destroy everything, including himself. This is her final chance, a desperate campaign to bring her son back before the town and the family implodes. Part 4. The Innocent and the Damned. In this escalating war of titans, the collateral damage is mounting, and the innocent are becoming pawns in a game they don't even know is being played. Willow Tate stands at the altar of her own impending disaster, believing she is walking towards stability when she is actually being led deeper into Drew's game of retaliation. He has manipulated her, played the victim, and presented himself as a protector, when in reality, he thrives in the chaos he quietly creates. His presence has poisoned everything, and his influence over Willow is the cornerstone of his strategy. Trina Robinson is carrying the weight of terrible knowledge, terrified of what her father might do next. She sees the signs of Curtis's obsession, the detachment, the increasingly erratic behavior masked as purpose. She wants to believe he can be stopped before it's too late, but with every passing day, that hope grows dimmer. Already grieving the man she once knew, she may soon be forced to do the unthinkable, expose her own father in order to save him from himself. The path Trina is being led down feels increasingly like a trap disguised as opportunity. Meanwhile, Portia Robinson is seething with a fury that simmers just beneath the surface. It's not just because of recent betrayals or disappointments. It's the growing realization that she is rapidly losing control over everything she thought she had anchored down. She sees the strange alliance forming around her daughter, the silent power moves, and the unsettling changes in the people she loves. This isn't paranoia, it's instinct. As a doctor and a mother, she has been burned before by trusting too much and questioning too little. Now, she's stepping forward, demanding answers, pushing boundaries, and refusing to be silenced by anyone. Even the younger generation is being pulled into the vortex. Carly sees Michael's coldness in how he treats the children, using them as leverage and weaponizing custody battles not out of necessity, but as punishment. Jocelyn, despite her loyalty, senses the coldness creeping into Michael. All around Port Charles, allies who once supported Michael are growing distant. Tracy sees his arrogance. Jason sees his rigidity. No one can reach him the way Carly can, and she's determined to use that last thread of influence before it snaps completely. She knows that if Michael fully becomes the man Drew is shaping him into, there will be no redemption. Carly won't just lose her son. She'll lose everything she's spent a lifetime fighting for. Conclusion: the coming storm. As the date of the wedding creeps closer, the air in Port Charles grows tense. Invitations have been sent, dresses have been chosen, but behind the scenes, something far more sinister is unfolding. The alliance of Nina and Tracy is not just trying to stop a ceremony, they're orchestrating a takedown. Theirs is the kind of power play that could shatter not only the wedding but reputations, custody agreements, financial alliances, and the carefully curated public personas of everyone involved. This isn't about romance anymore. It's about reclaiming control and dismantling a growing empire of manipulation. And as Drew inches closer to launching his next campaign against Michael, he may be triggering the very forces that will rise to take him down. But for now, Drew believes he's winning again. He's regaining control. He has Willow's hand. He has the press's sympathy, and soon, if his plan succeeds, he'll have Michael's silence. Or so he thinks. Because in Port Charles, every move has a cost. The most powerful women in the city are no longer on the sidelines. They're leading the charge. And when the dust finally settles from this catastrophic storm, one thing will be clear. The war for the soul of the city's most prominent families will leave no one unscathed. The ultimate tragedy may be that in their righteous fury, every player believes they are justified, a conviction that paves the road to ruin for them all. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button for more updated news.